Welcome back to WizNugs. Today we're going to be discussing 3 things that can supercharge your new year. We're talking about reducing friction, we're talking about micro habits, we're talking about thinking systematically.
At the beginning of the new year, a lot of us decide that we're going to start on the new year with doing new things, new habits, right? Those new year resolutions. And a lot of times we get maybe a couple weeks in or so, and then we kind of like throw in the towel and we're like, all right. I was really super excited about it, but now this is a lot of effort. Things aren't quite working right. And then we kind of throw it out the window. So we want to talk about what we can do to kind of keep those new year resolutions in place and keep it moving forward.
First, we'd like to discuss how to reduce friction. Now, what we mean by this is friction in a physical sense is something that slows you down. Friction's what's going to make you stop. Sandpaper doesn't slide very well. Ice, you slide really well.
And I don't know if you really want to slide on either one of them per se. Maybe the ice, definitely not sandpaper.
If you're ice skating.
Sure, but even then, the falling down part, then the sliding.
Ice skate. Okay, let me go back a step. Ice skates work really well on ice, and they work really poorly on gravel.
Yes.
You don't slide.
Yes.
More friction on the gravel.
Yes.
That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
So in this case, how does this apply to supercharging your new year? It's about making the things that you want to do easier to do.
So how do we do that exactly?
I took a class in college on ergonomics and industrial design.
What's ergonomics? I'm not familiar.
Technically, it's the Greek. It's ergo has to do with work, and nomics is the study of.
Okay.
So it's the science of like work, how work happens.
Okay.
Basically, what we discussed, if I could sum up a whole semester's worth of study into, one neat little package.
Which you're really good at, by the way.
Well, thanks. It would basically be that you want to make reduce steps and reduce complexity to your environment. So if you're trying to cook more meals at home, you want to make sure that your pots and pans are easily accessible right near your stove. You want to make sure that your seasonings are in the place that you're going to use them. So if you've got a section of your kitchen that's set aside for, let's say, the coffee maker.
Okay.
Put your mugs near the coffee maker.
Put your sweeteners next to the coffee maker.
All the things that you're going to use together, put them together. It makes it easier to use them.
It's a one-stop shop.
Right. If you need a little garbage can to throw away your filters or your K-cups or whatever it is that you got.
Right.
Do that. Put that together, even if that's an extra thing. Or maybe you want to move the room's garbage can to be closer to that to make it easier.
So it is a little bit of prep, right? It's going to be a little bit of that front-loaded work. But the end goal is to make it so much easier from that point on, right?
Right. You can think about reducing friction as doing the pre-work to make the thing itself as easy as possible.
Got it.
In your dishes, in your kitchen cabinets, you might put the dishes that you only use for special occasions up high and out of the way.
Right, because we're not really going to use it that often except for the special occasion, Thanksgiving, Christmas, birthdays maybe.
Yep, exactly. And you're going to put the ones that you want to use more as easily accessible as possible. So if you're trying to learn how to play the guitar, don't keep your guitar in its case under your bed because that's a convenient place to store it.
Right.
That's great for storing it, but if you want to play it more, invest in a little stand or something so that it can be out in the room. Maybe even put it ridiculously in the middle of the room.
I think of the term out of sight, out of mind. And if it's not something that you're visibly seeing every single time, you forget about it.
Exactly. So make it as easy as possible by reducing the number of steps necessary to use it. So that might mean do the pre-work, set up a station to put all your tasks together that are related together. Or it might be get the thing out of the box and put it in front of you where you're going to see it and want to use it all the time.
Now, you could also then do the reverse for things that you want to stop doing, right?
Exactly. If you're wanting to stop using credit cards, well, number one is don't keep them stored in any digital format. So if you've got them in your wallet on your phone or whatever, delete them, take them out. You don't need to do that. If you're trying to reduce spending, wipe that out.
And you know that you have a habit of, if it's in your wallet and there's a thing that you like, you might go that path like, oh, what's here? I want it.
Easiest way to use it.
Right.
Money experts like Dave Ramsey would say, if you want to reduce your spending, the number one thing to do is use cash. Because if you're using cash, there's suddenly a more emotional, visceral reaction to handing over 20s, you're seeing, money just leaving your hand.
Yeah, it's that scarce resource, right?
And when you have to count it out,
Right.
5, 10, 15, 20, there's an emotional attachment to that because you can see it and feel it.
And
when you stick a card in and it's just beep boop boop and it's done, it's harder to feel that. It's easier for the money to just leave.
Well, I think of that, you instantly correlate it to what you had to do to earn that money, right? How long you had to work, if it's overtime pay, whatever it was. You're like, okay, well, there it went.
Sure.
And so there's that feeling of loss, and hopefully you're getting what you want more than what the money is in your hand, but it will stop you. It will limit you. Like, okay, well, all right, I hit my limit. That's it. I don't have but a couple more, dollars in my wallet now. So, okay, I got to now refrain.
So another way to increase that friction is to freeze your assets. But to literally take a credit card and put it inside a block of ice in the freezer.
Yeah, I could see how that would make it a little bit cumbersome to use.
If you want to use it, you've got to take it out of the freezer and wait for the ice to melt. Because if you stick that in the microwave, your mag strip's dead. You can't use it anymore. You just have to wait.
Yeah, makes sense. The second thing that we wanted to talk about is your micro habits. And what does that mean? Dr. Jordan Peterson talks about setting the bar low. And what does that mean? And when he went on to explain it, he's like, there are things in our life that are so simple and easy to change that when we think of change, those don't come to mind because we have very lofty goals, right? I want to get in shape. I want to lose weight. All right. Well, then how do I go about that? Well, this is so hard. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this now because I've set this high goal and this is so hard. I don't have the time. So start off with the micro habit, the small thing. And an example he gives is make your bed. Make your bed every morning. And it's a small change that's easy to do. It seems inconsequential, but it's proof that you can change your habits.
It's enough to get your brain out of the mode of I can't do things. I can't change things. The world around me is just what it is. There's nothing I can do about it. I am who I am and I can't change.
Right. And I would even say, if you can do that, even take it maybe a little step more and rearrange your room. And the reason that I say that is we get into habits. And if we get used to where things are, then we get into that habit. But if we can rearrange the room, even if it makes it a little bit more functional, rearrange it so now that when I come into the room, I just can't automatically go into autopilot. That goes here, I'm going to flop over here. I have to think about it. I have to think about, okay, wait. Okay, I changed it. This doesn't go here anymore. Now I have to go over here to do this thing. And the point of this is to break yourself out of your normal day routine. And if you can then take that lesson and apply it to other things in your life and say, look, I was able to do something as very small and very simple as rearranging my room and then retraining myself on new habits. Then I can take that same mentality and apply it towards the things that I want to change in my life.
And when you make those habits too big all at once, it's a funny thing about, like, if you think about like a New Year's resolution is like the super high level.
Right, the pinnacle, right?
And then the goal is taking the New Year's resolution and making it, breaking it out into what are the steps that you actually have to do. But very often we overlook that there's another layer deeper that is all the little habits that need to go into it. So if your New Year's resolution might be, I'm going to get fit this year. Your goal might be, I want to lose a pound a week until I'm at my goal weight.
Right.
Then all the little micro habits that go in there are, I need to eat differently.
Drink more water.
I got to shop differently. I have to cook differently. There's going to be more dishes to wash because I'm cooking more foods rather than eating fast food, from a drive-through. And
then you go to the first step, and that's making it so there's less friction to make that happen.
Well, I'm thinking of that the habits themselves can get in our way because we don't understand how many of them there are.
Sure.
So if we just say, I want to get fit, okay, that's great. I'm going to work on losing weight. These are the steps I'm going to take to change my calories. Oh my goodness. Now I have to change the way I eat. I'm going to be buying vegetables now. How do I know when broccoli is fresh, or
Right.
there's a whole bunch of little things that we have to learn. So by setting the bar as low as possible, we're increasing our chance of success. And as psychological creatures, emotional creatures first, we get that sense of victory from
accomplishment
from that win, that little win of just having. I bought a vegetable today. Like, it sounds stupid because it's so small, but that's exactly what the idea of having micro habits are, is that you build up a set of victories.
Right. And if you start building up these victories, eventually you're like, yeah, I want to keep this going. I'm going to keep making these small little victories till eventually you get to where you want to be. It will take time, but it's to prove to yourself that you can do it. You can change yourself and start something simple.
And speaking of hacking your brain, we've talked about Andrew Huberman before.
Correct. Yes.
Hacking your brain's dopamine cycle. When you do these little wins, that gives you that little hit of dopamine. That's the same thing as, like why all the little phone scrolls are so addicting, is because every time you discover something new that gets you, it gives you that little hit of dopamine, and your brain goes, this is good. This is what I'm supposed to be doing.
And this is going back to what that same gentleman talking about being positive, right? Focusing on the positive and the gratitude. Right? So if you're focusing on these positive wins, and I've done one after another, after another, after another, you become positive. You get into this mentality of positivity, and suddenly the things that seemed insurmountable beforehand are now attainable. And so the last thing we wanted to talk about was thinking systematically.
What I mean when I say thinking systematically is you can build a framework for lots of different activities that can help you. Again, it's kind of like reducing friction by setting it up ahead of time.
Sure.
But now we're thinking in terms of decision making, for example.
Okay.
My family, when we do meal planning, if we don't do meal planning, then when it comes to dinner time, we sit around staring at each other. I'm picturing the vultures on Jungle Book. There's a deep cut for you, going all the way back to Disney 1960s. The vultures are sitting around going, what do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do? Don't start that again. I asked you first. And it's just this roundabout. And that's what we end up doing when we don't have a plan ahead of time.
There was a commercial that was much on that same line, and it was Ironicus and Stupidicus. And they were both talking to each other. What do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to eat? I don't know. What do you want to eat?
To do a meal plan can be equally daunting because you're looking at this ahead of time, planning out for, say, a week at a time.
Yeah.
And you go, well, I don't know what I'm going to want to eat on Thursday. That's a real thing, right? We're emotional creatures. Sometimes we want to make our emotional choice of what to eat on the fly.
So what you could do is then maybe say, okay, I don't know exactly what I want to eat, but I know I could think of 7 or 8 dishes that I love to eat or I like to eat, and then I can just write those out. And then from there, select the top 7 that I would like to have during that week.
Sure. Another thing, this is the system that we put in place in my house is, when we're doing meal planning, we'll stop and say, okay, we like to eat Italian food. We like to eat Mexican food. And then we just made these categories for okay, well, we don't want to eat Italian every day of the week.
Sure.
So we'll set one meal that goes into our plan is an Italian dish. Whether that's, and then we break that down further and we say, okay, here's our list of the Italian meals that we know how to make on a regular basis. So we might have spaghetti with red sauce, or fettuccine Alfredo, the white sauce. We might have lasagna, stuffed peppers, whatever it is that's your thing, that's on your list of that category. It's kind of like, I picture it like a website that has a drop-down list.
Okay, yeah.
So we can say Monday, dinner. Okay, click on that drop-down list. What options are going to pop up there?
Right.
If you make that list ahead of time, you're defining those options. So now when it comes time to make the choice, just pick something from the list.
Yeah, and you've already gone out and done the prep work up front to make sure that you have all the ingredients and everything you need to be able to make those dishes.
Well, that's where we'll do the meal plan ahead of time so that we know what to do grocery shopping for.
Right.
And then we'll go and say, okay, well, first thing we do is shop our pantry. What do we have?
Right.
And then of the things that we have, then we make our shopping list from there, and we know what ingredients we need. So again, talking about micro habits,
right?
The ability to make a shopping list in advance is dependent on having the plan for your meals. Then you get your shopping list. Then you can go and learn how to select fresh tomatoes or whatever.
Right.
So that's how we use a system to make the decision-making process itself easier. And we can do this for all kinds of things. We've developed a system. I like to do this. This is what we do as database developers all the time, is try to think, how can we automate this? How can we make it as easy as possible for the end user to just do the job?
Right. As minimal effort on their end as possible. We're going to handle it.
And if you're the person developing the system and using the system, you put all that effort in on the front to make the system as functional as possible.
That's right.
And then when it comes time to go, you just say, okay, well, I feel like having, for my Italian, I'm going to have spaghetti bolognese. For my Mexican, we're going to do chimichangas. And then...
Not really Mexican food, but I digress.
Close enough for me. And then we'll do a sandwich. And then we've got two other categories that we call big and small. So big would be if we have a really involved recipe. So if we find a cool recipe for chicken pot pies, for example.
Okay.
That's one that I really love, that we make completely from scratch. Well...
And I've had it. It's delicious.
We can't do that every day of the week.
Right.
Because some days we don't have time to cook. So that might be Sunday when we've got more time. We're going to unwind together in the kitchen. We're going to, chop vegetables and, prep everything.
And like you said, this is kind of something you take into consideration when you're planning this out. I know Monday through Friday, my time is limited. And maybe my spouse's time is limited, right? And so we have to figure out what meals do we like and are also time effective.
So a microwave burrito might be our Mexican for one week because we just don't have time to cook. So let's make sure that we have some frozen burritos so that we can just handle those times, so that we don't end up doing a drive-through run to get the easy calories. Again, this is for us trying to lose weight, trying to be more fit. They all kind of fit together.
And we know that necessarily a frozen burrito may not fit into my meal plan is designed around losing weight, right? So you'll have to adjust accordingly to what works for you and whatever your resolution is, right? So in this particular case, we're talking about this is what works for Casey. But for you, depending on what your goal is, what your resolution is, setting up this meal plan to work accordingly to what your goal is. If it's I want to become a bodybuilder and I want to be able to put on mass, then obviously you're going to pick things that go with that accordingly.
You'll need 3 frozen burritos.
Yes, 3, and 1 chimichanga. But maybe it's to lose weight. Maybe it's just to eat healthier. But putting all that work in advance, putting it all in the front, and then changing those little micro habits to get yourself these little wins that get you in the positive mode, then to be able to go out there and think, okay, now that I've done these first 2 things, now I want to be able to create a winning solution that's going to set me up for success. And by doing the work in advance and planning it out, you get yourself to want to be. And then you find out in the end, well, now that I've done all this up and I've set this all up, this is really easy to follow.
Exactly. So that's why when we think systematically, that can inform our other choices of which habits are we going to work toward, which micro habits are we going to try and build, where do we need to increase friction or reduce friction, whatever your pain points are for your goals. That's the spot where you want to focus your attention on reducing friction.
So to kind of sum this up, we want everyone to be as successful as you can possibly be, especially if these are the changes that you want to see happen in your life. So focus on reducing friction for the things that you want to change to make it easier to do. Make sure that you focus on the little things that you can change for the big wins eventually. And then think systematically, so knowing that there's a way to set things up that will make it easier in the long run. And so though it's not a last minute, like, I don't know what I'm going to do.
Thanks for joining us on WizNugs today. We're glad you made it this far. Please remember to hit that subscribe button and tell all your friends.
And if you have any suggestions on any subjects that you would like us to cover, please let us know in the comments below. We are also now streaming on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So if you can't watch a video, check us out there.
Thanks for joining us today on WizNugs. If you liked what you heard, spread the word. For more information, head over to mywiznugs.com.